All right, today we're going to build a table for a gazebo. This is the table here that needs to be replaced. My neighbor asked me to repair it, and it just looks like it needs to be replaced. So it's a simple enough project, and I thought I'd record it and put it on YouTube. But anyways, normally we would draw a plan for anything that we're going to build, but because we have the physical plan and we have to make this exactly because it kind of fits right in the gazebo space, exact dimensions, so we're just going to trace everything off of here, maybe make the legs a little better. As you can see, the reason that it needs replacement is the leg is broken. It got kind of thin. Oops, down there we go. It got kind of thin, but basically all you'll need for this project is a sheet of plywood for the top, which we have, and you know, a 4x4, 8 feet long. It's only about 40 bucks in material, and we'll get started. All right, one of the things I noticed with this table, one of the reasons why it's rotted, even though it's held up in pretty good shape, I guess Francis is the woman that I'm building it for. Her dad built this table probably a long time ago. She's probably 65, I don't know. She said when she was 16 he built this gazebo for her, so I assume the table as well. But one of the things I noticed is, you see the plywood, the end grain, that's not good to leave raw like that. So I do have some of this edging material that I'm going to use, and if you see, kind of see how that works. That's going to fit on there like that. So I want to make sure, one of the things, normally if I was going to just leave it raw, I could just trace the table and wouldn't be a problem. But I don't know if those are exactly 22.5-degree angles for this octagon. So, and I want to be able to cut this molding at 22.5 degrees on my chop saw. So I just want to make sure that when I make my octagon, number one, it's a little bit smaller, so I can account for the thickness of this material, because again, it has to be the same size. It kind of fits in this gazebo. It's a little snug actually, but she said make it exactly the same, so that's what I'm doing. But so I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller to take this edging, plus it's decorative and it protects the end grain of the plywood. So the first step is to figure out how big the table is, and then draw a perfect octagon on our sheet of plywood. Okay, so now that we have our octagon cut out, and we can work on the leg now. Now remember, the only difference between this octagon and this one is all these sides are exactly the same length, so that we can use the chop saw when putting on that edging. But anyways, we're going to cut the leg to length. We're going to mimic this assembly with a couple of 2x4s. I think maybe we might recess those 2x4s, and then the other thing is, I thought this should really be an angled. The person that sits on these ends has those in their knees. So we'll just change that a little bit. Doesn't have to go all the way to the end to support the table, but we definitely have to redo or rethink the way these legs are. As you can see, is this is the one that broke, and somebody tried to repair it. So we're going to use up all the 4x4 for the leg assembly, and we'll just move on from here. One way to make the legs and the supports a little stronger is to actually notch out the 4x4 and recess the 2x4s in there. I went ahead, I drew that with, you couldn't see it with pencil, so I drew it with a Sharpie. But I didn't want to use, I had scrap 2x4, and so I planed them down, made them look, they're square, and just clean them up a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just transfer, you know, the dimensions of those similar to this, and then notch out this 4x4 with the skill saw and hammer and a chisel, and that'll make that assembly nice. All right, here you can see how this kind of assembly goes together as we notch that out. 2x4s go on there. Again, I don't know if you can see that pencil mark, but I want to put an angle on there for the person that's sitting at either end of that octagon. of the table, so it doesn't hit their knees. It doesn't really affect the support any, and also the bottom edge is kind of sharp because I ran this 2x4 through the planer. So I'll cut these on the bandsaw, and I'll probably just hit that edge maybe with the belt sander, or I might even take my planer and put a nice little edge on there. Just take it off. The top, of course, we wouldn't have to worry about. The top's going on here, and then we'll work on the bottom. Okay, the next step is to make this leg, this foot rather, and what we want to do is we're going to take out this middle material of the cross piece, and then the actual leg, we're going to remove the ends and we're going to slide that in. It's a mortise and tenon joint. We'll do this on the drill press, and we'll do this like we did the top piece. Okay, next we're going to chisel out the remainder of the material, and I bought a good pair of a good set of chisels. That's the entire set. I think I paid about 160 bucks for those. I used to use these cheap ones, and they're good for you know, I think I got that at Home Depot or Lowe's or something, maybe a set of 3 or 4. But they're good for, I don't know, small stuff, but there is nothing that you know, can replace a good set of chisels. And when you do something like this is you'll find out. Alright, after about 10 minutes of fiddling with it, you can see we got ourselves a square hole. Now we can work on the tenon. And alright, well, that's done. That fits in there like that. Well, the battery on the video camera died while I was doing this project, so I plugged in the charger, and I just kept right on moving with the project. I just want to get it finished up and give it to my neighbor. But actually, the techniques that you've seen thus far in this video really are no different than going forward. It's all the same thing. I can show you what I came up with. Here's all the pieces. There you can see I beefed up the top a little bit. I filled this void. I didn't have a long enough piece, so I said, well, that kind of adds to its dimension, so I kind of sandwiched that. Actually goes in there. This piece here kind of fits in there. How did I solve this wobbly problem? Well, there's really no good way to do it, but I think the beefier the stock is going to really help. I notched it a little bit because I didn't want to get too much into, I didn't want to make that too small, so the thickness here. So it'll give it a little bit of a shoulder, and with some good adhesive glue, the assembly process, which we can go ahead and keep going on, that kind of fits in there. And you can see this piece fits right in there, nice and tight. I did like this detail, which I think is pretty smart, in case the floor in the gazebo is not level. So that's how I came up with it. I did it on the bandsaw, kind of did a kind of an archy thing. You see it's a little beefier because it's I used up all the scrap from the 4x4 post, and this piece here goes on top like here. And that sucker slips right on there, you can see, and then of course the top goes on top. So we can go ahead and assemble, and then we can do this detail, this molding that I want to put around the edge, and once we do that, the table's pretty much done. I will use a good construction adhesive, which is this liquid nails, for the assembly. I use regular wood glue for these joints. Wood glue works good. It's raw material, but when it comes to the pressure treated stuff, the liquid nails works pretty good. So we'll just start assembling it, and then we'll do a little trim work, and that'll be it. I've already done most of the sanding, so this project's almost complete. Alright, I flipped the plywood upside down, and all I'm going to do is measure all the points, make sure it's in the center of the table. I'll mark it, flip the whole assembly, glue and screw the whole thing together. So we'll just use a little bit of wood glue and a nailer, and we'll just walk around and tack all this stuff on. This project's pretty much done.
Thanks for watching.